everybody, happy Friday. Hope you have a good week, or hope you're having or have had a good week, and are looking forward to an enjoyable weekend. If you're like my wife and I, you're shut in and are locked down or self-isolated or whatever term you would like to use during these crazy times of the COVID-19 virus. But we're all trying to do our part to slow this thing down, and hopefully from what I've been reading in the news, there is a vaccine on the way. But of course, like all things, it takes time. I watched a news video, and the fellow here in Canada at one of the labs said they should have something ready in about 8 to 9 months. And the newscaster said to him, well, given the situation, can't you fast track this? And the fellow from the lab laughed and said, well, normally this would take 8 to 9 years, so 8 to 9 months is fast tracked. Well, that's true, but that 8 to 9 months seems like a long time to those of us who are having our lives impacted by this virus, which seems to be pretty much everyone in the world. But just do your best to stay safe and healthy and abide by whatever rules have been put in place by your government, and hopefully all things will work out well in the long run. Alrighty, it's time for today's shoutouts, and our first shoutout goes to Gdyupgal Gypsy Adventures, and a very nice lady who lives in North Dakota and sometimes works in Montana, but northern states, and actually not too awfully far from where I live here in Canada. And she does some wonderful videos, adventures, herself and her dog Ginger and her horse. The name of her horse is eluding me at the moment. But anyway, just a fun channel and really well worth checking out. So that's Gdyupgal Adventures. And the second shout out goes to Born Again Farm Girl. And it's a channel that I watch and enjoy. And as you can probably guess from the title, it's life on the farm and a homestead type thing. But very informative, very educational, and a joy to watch. So check out Gdyupgal Adventures and Tracy, Born Again Farm Girl. All right. So I want you to picture in your mind, you can close your eyes for this for a second if you want, or if you have a good imagination, you can do it with your eyes open. But picture back in the Old West. A lone cowboy galloping across the prairies. He's in a hurry to get where he's going, and he's running his horse out fast. When suddenly, from behind a clump of trees, another rider appears and chases after the first rider until he finally gets him to stop. The first rider stops his horse. The second rider pulls up behind him, gets off his horse, adjusts his gun belt, walks up to the first rider and says, "Do you know how fast you were going? I'm going to need to see your rider's license and registration." Yeah, never saw that in a cowboy movie, did you? But it makes you wonder, when did we start making people have a license to drive? Not ride, but to drive. Well, let's find out, shall we? Why did the government stick its nose into driving? To understand this, it helps to consider the transition from animal to machine transportation. In the 1800s, roads were designed for horses, wagons, and foot traffic. While they were frequently dusty and muddy, they served their intended purpose well enough. Buildings weren't far from the streets, so you couldn't make more room without knocking something down. Now add an ever-increasing flow of noisy early automobiles trying to navigate the congestion without traffic control. The cars scared the horses, and spooked horses scared the pedestrians. Things were a mess. By the late 1800s, any fool who could afford a motor vehicle was entitled to operate one. Even then, vehicles routinely achieved speeds that equaled that of a draft horse's gallop. But horseback riders didn't typically gallop their mounts through busy city streets, at least not any more than one would ride your mountain bike at full speed through a crowded mall. As 1900 loomed, traffic had gone from being a mere annoyance to a growing public hazard. The new motor cars could be lethal. though on a positive side, they didn't void their bladders and bowels in the streets. One solution was to require drivers to obtain licenses, which could be revoked for bad driving. In the early 1900s, Germany and France became the first nations with mandatory licensing. The United States, which delegated the authority to individual states, proceeded slowly. In 1903, Massachusetts and Missouri became the first states to issue driver's licenses. Nearly 40 states had issued driver's licenses by 1935, and today all states do. The driving test, which began in 1913 in New Jersey, gave the license meaning. Driver testing seeped into the system state by state, mainly between 1930 and 1950. Of the first 48 states, South Dakota was the last to mandate licenses in 1954 and driving tests in 1959. Here's a few other little interesting tidbits. America's modern interstate highway system was designed in the 1950s during the Eisenhower administration. Its primary purpose was not to enhance casual driving over long distances, but to provide for efficient movement of military vehicles when it was necessary. Traffic lights. Traffic lights were initially invented to control horse and buggy traffic. The first, which only included red and green lights, was installed at a London intersection in 1868. Yellow was added in 1918. The first Ford automobiles featured engines made by Dodge. John and Horace Dodge built engines for the Ford Motor Company at their shop in Detroit. America's first federal gasoline tax, 1 cent per gallon, was instituted on June 6, 1932. By 2008, the rate was 18.4 cents per gallon. So there you go. A little history of automobilia and the automotive movement in the United States, and when you first had to have a license, etc. So make sure your license and testing is up to date and that you're safe on the road. Although at the moment you probably won't be driving much because you're locked up due to the coronavirus. It's time for the GROANER! Well, it seems a truck driver on his normal long-haul route stopped late one evening at a diner to have his supper. And while he was there, 3 members of a motorcycle gang came in. And of course, being the truck driver was the only other person in the cafe besides the waitstaff, figured he was the perfect guy to pick on. One of the bikers unscrewed the top of the pepper shaker and dumped pepper all over the man's head, causing him to sneeze terribly. The second fellow swiped the man's cup of coffee and his piece of pie that was waiting to be eaten. And the third one decided, oh, that wasn't enough, so he picked up what was left of the fellow's dinner and slapped him in the face with it. Well, the trucker didn't do anything. Didn't raise a fuss, cause anything, picked up some napkins, wiped what was left of his supper off his face, got up, walked over to the till, paid the waitress behind the till what he owed, and gave her a nice healthy tip, and left the restaurant. Well, the 3 bikers sat down at the bar, at the dinner bar, to have their meal, and the waitress was pouring them cups of coffee as one of them said to the others, gee, that guy was no fun at all. He just never put up a fight, and what a lousy fella. Just not much of a man at all. And the waitress, who was looking out the window over their shoulder, says, yeah, you're right, not much of a truck driver either. He just ran his truck over 3 motorcycles. Wop, wop, wah. Or as they say, when the 2 drums and the cymbal fell off the cliff, ba-bump, ching. Anyway, hope you have a good weekend. Enjoy yourselves, and we'll see you on Tuesday. And I'm not sure yet whether we're going to be doing cooking in the kitchen or if you'll get another story time. But we'll see. Things are limited. We're watching our grocery supplies as we're shut down, locked in for anywhere from 2 weeks to a month. And so that makes cooking basic. We're just doing the basics. So we'll see. I may just give you an extra story time instead of a cooking video. But you'll have to wait until Tuesday to find out. So until then, take care, stay safe, and God bless.